In 1949, Boeing was staring at a problem. The company was flying high on military prestige, thanks to legends like the B-17 and the B-29. But when it came to selling planes to airlines, Boeing was getting crushed. Its big commercial bet, the Stratocruiser, had flopped. Only 56 were ever sold, and the program bled the company out of $15 million. Douglas and Lockheed owned the skies. Boeing owned the Pentagon's contracts and nothing more. So how did this struggling commercial player end up building the aircraft that defined modern air travel? The story of the Boeing 707 isn't really about a plane. It's about a company that figured out something its rivals never did, and that lesson still applies today. Let's rewind. By 1950, the U.S. Air Force had a growing headache. It had ordered more than 800 KC-97 tankers to refuel its bombers mid-air. The problem? Those tankers were propeller-driven, and the Air Force's new jets were leaving them behind. A propeller plane trying to refuel a jet was like a bicycle trying to keep pace with a sports car. Boeing looked at that gap and saw an opportunity nobody else was chasing. What if one aircraft could be built to serve two masters, the military and the airlines, at the same time? It was a radical idea. Most manufacturers picked a lane. Boeing decided to build a bridge. The company even rebranded itself for the moment. Its old propeller aircraft carried 300 series names. Its missiles and other products had claimed different number ranges. So Boeing reserved the 700 series for the jet age, and the first aircraft off that list became the 707, a number that, as legend has it, marketing simply liked better than 700 flat. The real breakthrough, though, came from an engine. Pratt & Whitney's JT3C turbojet, essentially the civilian version of the engine already powering the B-52, gave Boeing something it never had before, enough thrust to build a genuinely large, genuinely fast jet transport. With that power available, Boeing tested wing shapes and engine placements borrowed from the B-47 bomber and the C-97, before settling on a four-engine layout that would become iconic. That research produced the Boeing 367-80, nicknamed the Dash 80. It moved astonishingly fast for the era. The project began in 1952. The prototype rolled out in May of 1954. It flew for the first time just 2 months later. This wasn't a leisurely development cycle. This was a company racing to prove a concept before anyone else could. The Air Force took the bait first, turning the Dash 80's design into the KC-135 tanker. But the commercial future was still a gamble. Most of Boeing's money was still coming from military work, and airlines hadn't committed to anything. Then came a moment that changed public perception almost overnight. On August 7, 1955, over Lake Washington, test pilot Tex Johnston rolled the Dash 80 completely upside down and back again, a full barrel roll live in front of a stunned crowd. Boeing executives were reportedly furious. Johnston later shrugged it off, calling it a 1G maneuver that put no extra stress on the airframe. Whatever you call it, the stunt did something no ad campaign could. It made the jet age look thrilling instead of terrifying. But showmanship alone doesn't sell airplanes. Airlines wanted cabins that made money, and that meant width. The Dash 80 started with a fuselage barely wide enough for 4 seats across, mirroring the old Stratocruiser. Airlines said that wouldn't cut it. Boeing widened the fuselage to fit 5 seats across, reusing tooling from the KC-135 program to keep costs down. Then Douglas struck back. Their rival jet, the DC-8, offered a fuselage wide enough for 6 seats across. Airlines noticed immediately. So Boeing widened the 707 again. Twice, the company tore up its own blueprints because customers demanded more room. Proof that Boeing was willing to bleed money and delay production rather than lose the argument on comfort. The first production 707 flew in December 1957, and after an intense flight test campaign, the FAA granted certification in September 1958. That process wasn't just paperwork. Boeing's test pilots pushed the aircraft through grueling trials, work serious enough to earn them one of aviation's first major flight testing honors. Along the way, engineers uncovered a genuine safety risk. Investigators looking into accidents involving the rival de Havilland Comet had found that steep takeoff rotation angles could send an aircraft out of control. Boeing's own testing showed the 707 could stall the same way if pilots rotated too aggressively on takeoff. The fix was a set of leading-edge flaps positioned between the inner and outer engines, designed specifically to delay a stall during a hard rotation, even in cases where the tail scraped the runway. It's a quiet detail, but it's the kind of engineering discipline that built trust in jet travel at a moment when the public was still nervous about it. From there, the 707 stopped being one airplane and became a whole family. Qantas needed a lighter jet for ultra-long routes, so Boeing shortened the fuselage by 10 feet to create the 707 to 138. Braniff wanted more power for hot weather, short runway performance, so Boeing fitted stronger Pratt and Whitney engines to build the 707 to 220. For true intercontinental range, Boeing stretched the wings and fuel capacity to create the 707 to 320 and offered a version with British Rolls-Royce engines for airlines that preferred them. As the industry shifted toward more fuel-efficient turbofans, Boeing upgraded the whole lineup, badging the improved engines with AB. In the final major civilian version, the 707-320C added a cargo door and reworked wing so the same airframe could switch between hauling passengers and hauling freight. Even after airline orders dried up, military versions of the airframe kept rolling off the line for decades, with the last new 707-based aircraft built as late as 1991. So why did the 707 win when the Stratocruiser and so many competing jets didn't? First, Boeing split its risk. By designing for the military and the airline simultaneously, the company locked in guaranteed government orders before a single airline had signed a contract. That funding and the operational experience gained from military use gave Boeing a financial cushion its rivals never had. Second, Boeing listened, even when it was expensive. Competitors froze their fuselage dimensions early and got stuck when tastes changed. Boeing tore up its own tooling twice to keep pace with what airlines actually wanted. Third, timing and trust mattered. Airlines were nervous after early jet accidents elsewhere in the industry. Boeing's public demonstrations, rigorous certification process, and visible safety fixes, like those leading-edge flaps, gave nervous customers a reason to believe the jet age was safe. Fourth, the platform could grow. A shorter fuselage for long, thin routes, a bigger wing for intercontinental flights, new engines for efficiency. Airlines could expand their whole network without ever leaving the 707 family. And finally, Boeing thought in decades, not quarters. Once the orders started coming in, the company built out the parts network, the training pipelines, and the military-backed logistics to support the aircraft for the long haul. Airlines weren't just buying a plane. They were buying the confidence that it wouldn't be an orphan 5 years later. The Boeing 707 didn't win because it was the first jet airliner. It won because Boeing built an aircraft and a company that could adapt faster than anyone else in the room. If you enjoyed this deep dive into how the jet age really began, drop a like, subscribe for more aviation history, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's next.